Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Carl Baker. I'm the Marketing Director at Alloy Computer Products. Welcome to the third in our continuing series of 3CX webinars. This morning we'll be looking at issues around installing, deploying the 3CX telephone system. Just before we start, let's just go through a few housekeeping issues. Hope I don't bore those of you who've heard all this before, but we'll just quickly go through this. There are two ways of getting audio. As far as I can see, everybody here has audio set up. But if you want to dial in, you can do that through PSTN. And there's details of both people joining us from New Zealand and Australia to dial in with your access code. Otherwise, you can use voice over IP audio from your computer. Now will be the formal part of the presentation, the deploying the 3CX presentation. We'll take up the beginning of our webinar, and that will probably last for probably an hour. And during that time, we'll have all attendees muted so that our audio is nice and clear for everybody. But during that period of time, you can have chat questions, and we do have a number of our technical staff available to answer questions. So in your GoToWebinar dashboard, you'll see there's a little pad there called chat. You can use that to fire off chat questions to us, and we'll do that as we go along. And I can see we've had a few already. Now, as far as at the end of the webinar, we'll also move to a audio question and answer session. So if you want to ask an audio question at the end, the way to let us know that you want to ask a question is to have your attendee section of your GoToWebinar pad open, and just click on the little icon next to your name that shows a raised hand that you want to ask a question, and we'll see that come up, and we'll queue you in. So when we've finished our formal presentation, we can move from chat questions to audio questions. Just raise your hand in the keypad there. We'll queue you in, and you can ask your question out in audio for everybody to hear. Of course, during the audio questions, if you want to carry on asking chat questions, you can do that as well. Okay, so moving on. As I said, my name is Carl Baker. I'm the Marketing Director at Alloy. The main part of our presentation this morning will be delivered by Matt Catilla. Many of you already know Matt. Matt's a 3CX account manager here at Alloy. He's also a 3CX certified engineer and has been involved with the 3CX product on a technical level for quite a number of years now. Although we haven't given the guys a gong, we also have with us behind the scenes answering keyboard questions, chat questions, Adam and Vincent Garcia. So the guys will be there to answer questions for you. Okay, so this is just a quick run through of what we're covering today. As you can see, pretty full program. I'm not going to go through all these items, but that information's there. I will just mention while we're looking at this screen, we will be posting in PDF format and also in a recording all the information that you're listening to right now and seeing right now. So probably tomorrow you'll see that information go up, and you'll get an email to say that the information's posted. Okay, so I will just talk to the first few screens, which really are about some of the value points that the 3CX offer users. And I'll just go through some of that information as an introduction before we hand over to Matt. I guess first and foremost, as probably many of you will know, it's important to point out that the 3CX phone system is an open standards product. It's based on the SIP open standard. It's fully tested for compatibility with services and hardware products using the SIP standard. So in relation to hardware devices that you might need to use with the system, such as SIP phones, VoIP gateways, and services like ITSP services from VoIP providers. It's important for people to understand that 3CX themselves do a huge amount of testing with a range of hardware manufacturers and service providers. Generally, if a hardware device or a VoIP service is fully compatible in itself to the SIP standard, then there should be absolutely no problem with an IP phone or a VoIP gateway or an ITSP service being fully compatible with the 3CX system. In addition, 3CX themselves, as I mentioned, do a lot of testing with individual manufacturers and providers. In terms of SIP phone manufacturers and VoIP gateway manufacturers, they maintain a list of approved 3CX approved third-party manufacturers. So mentioning some of the brands that we represent and sell here at Alloy, with SIP phones, you'll see that Yearlink and Snom are fully third-party approved for the 3CX telephone system. In relation to VoIP gateways, the pattern range of SmartNode VoIP gateways are also fully approved as third-party tested products by 3CX. And for those of you who haven't heard the news as yet, Alloy has just recently signed up as a distributor with patent for Australia and New Zealand, so we're their ANZ distributor now. So the full range of patent VoIP gateways plus a lot of their other networking and communications devices are available from Alloy now. As here at Alloy itself, as a 3CX distributor, as we get more and more into the 3CX product, we will also ourselves gain more and more experience, obviously, and do more and more work in terms of the use of hardware devices and VoIP services with the 3CX system. So we will be able to, we already have many years of experience in those areas, and we'll contribute more and more experience directly with the 3CX phone system to 3CX partners as time goes by. Well, 3CX telephone system features, where do you start? Well, let's just start by making a general point that 3CX have been developing their product for many years now. It's designed for the Windows operating system and Windows environments. It's by far the market leader for software PBXs in Windows operating system environments. And it's got a huge number of really valuable features that users have come to understand, provide them with a lot of productivity enhancing benefits. So I mean, you could talk for a long time about features, but let's just pull out a few. The product has a really easy to manage web interface. It's very clear, very easy to use. Auto provisioning is really straightforward and can be you can auto provision appliances onto the device from anywhere on your network. the product scales probably better than any PBX I've ever come across. I think the lowest number of licenses that you can install is 2, I believe, on the free system, but you can scale right up to 1,024, and very easy to scale. For those of you who aren't aware, the 3CX telephone system is licensed by concurrent calls. So when you purchase a product, you'll get a certain number of concurrent calls, and you can easily upgrade to higher levels of concurrent call. Lots of other features that make the product easy to manage and easy to use. For example, you can easily back up your PBX and configuration to a PC, and then very easily restore it. Very much like any other Windows-based software that you'd see. Easy to view the presence of other extensions in management screens. Lots and lots of productivity-enhancing features such as voicemail to email. Picking out maybe one area of functionality with the 3CX telephone system in particular to just comment on. One of the real joys of using the 3CX phone system is how well it supports mobility by staff using the PBX. Again, a huge number of mobility enhancing features in the 3CX telephone system. Again, just to pull out a few, you can very easily set up remote extensions via a 3CX tunnel. So if you have a managing director or a sales manager or some key person working remotely, either all the time or part of the time in a home office, you can very easily set up a telephone in their office, fully integrated into the 3CX system. Other features in the mobility area, there's a really sophisticated, innovative clients for iPhone and Android. So if you have an iPhone mobile or an Android-based mobile, you can get full ability to make and receive phone calls via the 3CX system on your mobile phone. Again, huge benefits there for mobile staff who are out of the office. You can use the system to forward calls to your mobile when you're out of the office very simply, very easily, and you can manipulate how that feature is going to operate. For example, you can base it on office hours, caller ID, for example. So enough from me. That's a quick look at some of the benefits and features of the 3CX telephone system. So we'll go now to Matt and get into the main substance of our presentation today, deploying the 3CX telephone system. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Carl. Hello all. Okay, we'll just get started with some of the fun things that 3CX has, especially in the call center features with 3CX MyPhone. I get a lot of questions regarding this. This is basically all web-based, so you can basically grab it from the web server or install it locally. It's pretty much like a shortcut, but once you install it on a local machine, it starts giving you more features. Things like real-time agent and queue status and statistics, additional advanced queue strategies, agent features and more detailed reporting. Okay, it also has a callback feature. Now, one of the great features on this, especially if you're assigned as a manager extension, you can listen and whisper and barge into calls. You can see by the little screenshot, if you're not a manager of a sales queue or in the actual extension itself, you won't have some of these privileges. So these privileges are all controlled via the 3CX server, what privileges each extension is allowed to do. So you control. If we can move on to the next slide. Okay. Before we even think of deploying 3CX, there's quite a few things that we need to consider. Okay. What format will it run in? What type of web server? What ports do I need open? Now, as you can see on the screenshot, it will run on Windows 7 Professional Ultimate Enterprise with Service Pack 1, okay, 32 or 64-bit, and so on. But before we even think, like I said, of deploying 3CX, okay, 3CX to communicate really well with a VoIP provider or any SIP protocol, if you're using a VoIP provider, will need certain ports opened. Okay. Now, it uses a communication port 5060. This is the standard port that most VoIP providers will use. We will need to open up this port, TCP and UDP. We need to port forward this via the router. Okay. It also uses ports 5080 to 5089 for bridge connections. Bridge connections are used when you want to connect remote 3CX PBXs together. Okay. We also have a 5090 tunnel, which is optional. Okay. This is pretty much for the tunnel connection. The reason why 3CX, this is proprietary to 3CX, the reason why they deployed this beautiful tunnel is so it fixes any NAT or PAT traversal issues. This is totally optional if you want remote extensions. And you'll also need to open up ports 9000 to 9049 UDP only. Now these are for calls are performed on these ports. All right, you might need to configure a firewall to allow and route the connections to these ports accordingly. Now internally, all right, ports that are used by 3CX is 4515, 4516, 5000, 5100, 5480 to 5489, 7000 to 7499, 32,000 to 32,999, okay, 40,000 to 40,999, and these are used by the 3CX phone system processors. All right, there should be no other application listening on these ports. What you'll need as well prior installing 3CX is .NET Framework version 4 or higher. Okay, the minimum requirement you require is a Core Duo processor and 1 GB of memory. If we can go to the next slide, please, Carl. Okay. Now 3CX also supports many gateways, whether it's the ones that are proven and work really well in our region. Now, I've probably installed probably 1,000 PBXs Australia, New Zealand wide. What I found to be the most, the best solution is pattern gateways, especially if you want to run it on a virtual environment. These things just point and shoot. Because 3CX supports this particular device in our region, what you can do is generate a config file directly via 3CX and then upload it to the device via the GUI. Simple, easy, and it works, and they don't fail over. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is just hardware requirements. You can get this report directly from 3CX, or we're more than happy to email it to you. Just if you can ask Adam or Vincent, we're more than happy to shoot this across to you. It basically gives you the minimum requirements, what type of server you can run this on, whether you want to use Abyss, okay, up to 100 extensions, it's fine. It's less labor for the CPUs, or if you're thinking of large deployments, then IIS is the way to go. Right, moving on. Okay, this basically gives you a scale. For instance, for simultaneous calls 512, the type of CPU, the memory that is required, the web server. Okay, now this is maximum of 200 MyPhone links. It tells you the minimum storage, okay, and the network link. We can move on to the next slide. Okay, now 3CX does install in minutes, okay, but these are the things. I mean, even if you look at the first slide, it will tell you the recommended versions that this can be installed on. Okay, it will tell you which ports to be open. Funny how a lot of people don't read or look at this, okay? But once this is performed prior installing 3CX, it's a breeze. Now, one of the things I will also say is always remember to give that server a static IP, because all the phones will be basically pointing to that static IP. Moving on to the next slide. Okay. Once again, it will tell you what type of web browsers it supports. Internet Explorer, Firefox or Chrome. I've also run it on my Safari, on my Mac. It runs beautifully. So, but these are the most supported, okay, and also supported VoIP phones and gateways. Now, if you are using a VoIP provider, okay, you must specify a public IP. Or if you want remote extensions, this is a must. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, oops, if we can, oh, sorry, Carl, if we can go one back. Notice, if you are installing it on a Microsoft Exchange server, right, that has Microsoft Exchange and SQL or SharePoint, right, we prefer, this is not recommended, okay, we prefer you using another install. Most important. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is the agreement. You must accept, or otherwise it will not install. Okay, so installing 3CX. By default, it will go to your C program files 3CX phone system. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is where we can choose, okay, whether we're going to use the IIS Internet Information Service or the built-in Abyss server. Okay, now Windows IIS on Windows 7 has a hard-coded HTTP connection, which limits only you to 10 simultaneous requests. So it's recommended on a Windows 7 box to select Abyss. All right, this is suitable for a small installation, less than 100 users. All right, for larger installs, then we'll use Server 2008 R2 is required. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, click on the install. What this does as well, it will basically check the machine that you're installing it on, that it's got its prerequisites. The wizard does all this. It also checks for .NET Frame, okay, and if you can use IIS or Abyss. If we go to the next slide. Okay, it shouldn't take too long. This is usually done within, oh, I'd say the longest I've ever installed one, probably about 7 minutes. Okay, this is basically set up the system. Okay, so click Finish. And if we can go to the next slide, please. All right, these are all the steps that it takes. Okay, select the language. If you are installing it in Spain, then select Spanish. If you're installing it here in our part of the region, English. So for next slide, please. Okay, this is most crucial. If you are installing it in that box, please use the correct static IP. Check your network settings. This is crucial, okay, because this is where everything will be pointing to. As you can see, it's very easy. Next slide, please. Okay. This is if you've had a backup from a previous install and you want to restore it on this particular machine, then we would select Restore PBX Settings. If you're creating a new PBX, okay, click Create PBX and click the next button. So next slide, please, Carl. Okay. Now this is very important. 3CX can be scaled in extension digits from 2 right up to 5. By default, it will go to 3. Okay, but if you're thinking of installing upon thousands of extensions, then I would go to a high digit range. Now, on the background, what this does, it also creates a database. So, for instance, all your IVR, internal voice recordings, okay, will be designated to a 3-digit number if you selected 3. And we'll have a look at this later. Next slide, please. Okay, this is something quickly that I put together. I'm actually using my SMTP server. Okay, if you have a mail exchange server, then you can put that on there as well. Put the email address, the user, and the password. What this allows you to do is, when you've had all your extensions set up, you can send each user a welcome email that will tell them what their extension number is, what their ID number is, and what their password number is. From that email as well, we can auto configure things like 3CX Windows phones. Okay, we can also deploy automatically Androids or iPhone that are in the WAN. All right, so they've got a wireless connection in the building. We can do this auto provisioning. We can also, okay, next slide. Okay, this is where you select a username and password, and it'll ask you to confirm your password to log into the 3CX administrator portal. If we can go to the next page, please. Okay. Once that's all done, it'll ask you to create an operator extension. This can be changed later, but by default, because we've selected 3 digits, it will come up with 100. This is not hard-coded, so this can be changed at any time you want. So, if we can go to the next slide, please. So, as you can see, I've called it extension 100, my first name, surname, an email address so I can receive voicemail, or being as the administrator, I can receive any messages in case anything should go wrong with the system. Okay, an authentication ID, you can change that. Okay, now if you look at the authentication password, this is very important. Okay, make it a secure password. Okay, please, please, please do not leave simple passwords on a phone system. Okay, also make your voice pin a little bit different. So when you go to retrieve your voicemail, you'll retrieve your voicemail, not anyone else's. Okay, in the next step, if we were to say auto configure a phone, now if you could go back please, Carl. Say for instance we wanted to automatically provision a phone. If we knew the MAC address of it, we could put that in, the model, right, and the selected interface, which at the moment is through the local network. Next slide, please. As you can see, extension 100 is created. It will show you the name, the last name, and the email address. Moving on to the next slide. Okay. We can select the region, okay, where we are. So what it does, as you can see, it will give you your area code, right? It will also give you an international dial code. Now, this international dialing code is more used for billing. So when it dials out, it already knows the prefix to look out for, and we'll cover that on another time. If we can go to the next slide, please, Carl. Okay. This is where we select the operator extension. So if we've got multiple extensions that we've actually added on, for instance, the operator extension doesn't have to be 100. It can be whatever you want it to be. By default, the voicemail extension will be 999. This is an IVR. Okay, this can be changed here as well. So if we can go to the next slide. Okay, some of the security features in 3CX, which I find really, really good. So for instance, if we're in Australia and we don't want anyone else to call out of the country, okay, we can just select only Australian calls. We can block any other calls going out of this PBX. By expanding the plus signs, you can actually add and remove any countries you want. Any country that you want this PBX to dial, that's all you need to do. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay. This will allow you to automatically configure your voice over IP provider. Engine is highly supported. We've been working with Engine since day dot. They were one of the first to come on board, but saying that, we've worked with MyNet Phone, we've worked with FactorTel, IINet, MyNet Phone, pretty much every single VoIP provider that we've come across, we've got to work and work well. It's usually a generic SIP trunk or a generic VoIP provider. Usually they will send you what the setup is, and 3CX is quite friendly to all of them because we can configure to their special needs or what SIP requests they require from 3CX. You can skip this test. I mean, you can skip this this section. We can actually add the VoIP provider or the carrier later. Once we've done that, we just hit the next button, and you can see it will configure the database. While it's doing this, it's actually configuring a whole database on the back end, which will be running on your program files. Then it will take you here. Okay, this is for the online registration activation. You can skip this. Okay, this is more so for someone that's just downloaded 3CX and giving it a try. There's actually a special place within 3CX where you can add your license key and make the PBX activated. If we can go to the next slide, please, Carl. Okay. So congratulations. Initial setup is completed successfully. Pretty easy, isn't it? And if we can go to the next slide, please, Carl. Okay. Most people will always have traditional telephone lines, and this is where 3CX is not biased. It doesn't matter what you're using, whether it's a PSTN line, whether you want to add a GSM gateway, whether it's an ISDN or a primary rate. The way we do this is by going into 3CX Management Console. We select Add a PSTN Gateway. There's drop-down boxes if you're using a supported gateway. For instance, in this case, we're using a pattern gateway with 4 PSTN lines. Okay, so the model that we'll be using here is a pattern 4114, which has 4 ports FXO. We select the country. We can collect the caller ID. We can deliver announcements through this. All right. We can also have a digit collection timeout. Okay, and in Australia here, if we're using most of the Telstra PSTN lines, what we would do is add a leading 0, because sometimes when you do get a call from a mobile, it will strip a leading 0. If you're using Optus, then there's no change. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay. Once we've configured what we want out of the pattern to go into the pattern, 3CX generates a config file. Okay. This config file you basically download into your documents or your downloads. It's just basically a config file that is uploaded into the pattern gateway. Once we've got this and we know the IP address of the pattern gateway, we open up the pattern gateway on a browser and select to upload this configuration into the pattern, and done. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, that's pretty much what you need to get 3CX up and running. It's quite simple. It's not a laborious thing. The key points that we need to remember here is the ports that we need to communicate to the outside world, so we get a two-way communication with good audio. Okay, the recommended operating systems, and the supported gateways for PSTN, ISDN, or primary rate. Okay, to become a 3CX partner, it's quite easily. All you have to do is go to this website and apply. Make sure you do mention that Alloy is your preferred distributor. Okay, it's quite easy to generate profitable recurring income out of this. All right, it's absolutely free to join the 3CX Partner Program. Now, we also give you a free NFR, which is a not-for-resale license key. It has everything open to it, including call center features. Okay, you have free direct access to the 3CX support team and Alloy team. Ask any questions you like. Okay, we also hold free training events. I believe we've got a couple coming up next month, one in Sydney and one in Melbourne. And you have full access to the 3CX Partner Portal. If we can go to the next slide, please, Carl.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Excellent presentation, and unfortunately Matt wins a beer next time I'm over in Adelaide. He told me he wouldn't need an hour, and he was right. What is it, Cooper's, I guess, would it be, Matt?
Oh, Carlsberg's my favourite, Carl. I'm thinking of you.
Okay, well, look, thanks very much, Matt. And just to remind everybody again, we will be putting this material up in the form of PDFs of the presentation and an actual recording of the webinar up on our website tomorrow.
Oh, excuse me, Carl. Just one other thing. For all you newcomers to 3CX, I found a website quite a while ago that I just absolutely love. I haven't written on the presentation, but this website is called portforward.com. Okay, what I love about this particular website, it has the most makes and models of any routers on the planet, and it'll also show you how to port forward it for 3CX. I thought it was important you should know.
We'll probably get that information up on the Alloy technical wiki site, I think, Matt.
I think we should, yep, definitely.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Matt. Now,
You're
Matt
welcome.
will be back with us again in a moment when we go to our question and answer session in just a couple of ticks. But just before we go there, if I could quickly bring everybody's attention to a couple of things. First of all, 3CX technical training courses. Now, 3CX themselves came over to Australia and were here with us last week. And while they were over here, they ran 3CX training courses in Melbourne and Sydney, to which a lot of people came. We know that there's still a lot of existing and potential 3CX partners who want to get along to the technical training courses. Alloy has done train-the-trainer training so that we can run those courses from here on in. And we will be starting to run the 3CX introductory partner workshop and advanced partner workshop here in Australia and New Zealand eventually from here on in. So our first courses will be at our own offices in Melbourne and Sydney in the first week of July, so just under a week. The dates are here on this page that you're looking at the moment. All the course training, the training syllabus, registration pages, venue, dates and times and everything is all up on our website on the link that you can see there. So if you want to hop over to the Alloy website, you can get all the information about the 3CX partner training workshops in Melbourne and Sydney in July on our website. Now, those workshops in our labs in our Sydney and Melbourne offices are limited to about a dozen at a time. We will, of course, gauge how the demand for training is going, and when we need to run them, we will run them so that we're keeping up with demand. If needs be, we will run them monthly to make sure that there's opportunities for people to come to our Melbourne and Sydney offices for the 3CX training without having to wait too long. Now, of course, that leaves guys in other states and you folks that have joined us from New Zealand. Often people in states other than the main eastern seaboard Australian states lose out a little bit. We're very aware of that. We will be working with guys in other states and over in New Zealand to see what the demand is there for these training courses, and if there's enough demand and it's easy enough to do, then we will get out to other venues as well. So keep an eye on the Alloy website for in our training calendar. And you'll see stuff come up there, and we'll be letting people know as we make arrangements for the 3CX training, 3CX partner workshops. Bear in mind, everybody, these are free events. So unlike a lot of courses, you don't have to cough up anything for attending these courses. And final thing from me, where, as I've mentioned in our previous webinars and in emails that I've been sending out to people, these webinars are part of a continuing calendar of 3CX webinars that we'll be running. This is our third. The first couple were what we call soft webinars about features of 3CX in the main. This is our first harder, more technically orientated webinar for 3CX. And we will continue over the next few weeks, probably on a 2-weekly basis, doing some of these harder types topics. And in On June the 9th, we'll be doing our 4th webinar. Again, Matt will be presenting, and he's entitled the next one, 3CX Tips and Tricks. Matt, maybe you just give us a minute or so just explaining what that webinar will be about.
Certainly. Tips and tricks will be about how to quickly auto-provision telephones. It'll be also about how to provision multiple DIDs, which is direct indals. So say, for instance, you might have a Telstra service or a voice over IP service that you have multiple direct indals. A lot of people are basically adding them on one by one. I can show you how this is done with one fell swoop by just using a number range. So it's very worthwhile. Also show you around the system how to access what you require quickly. Things like call recordings, where they're stored, what's the best practice, how to store them. Also advanced functionality per extension, what we're going to allow these extensions to do. What privileges you have of being a manager, a manager extension status on 3CX, and so on. So these are some of the things that are overlooked, and sometimes people, especially resellers, get asked, "Oh, can 3CX do that?" And I say, "I'm not sure." Oh, and then I get 1,000 emails saying, "Can it?" Yes, 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 it can do that. But showing you how to get, get it out of the system yourselves, and also being creative with the system to suit your customers' needs, because every customer is different, and that's the way we like to treat them as individuals. So I basically show you how to paint with 3CX.
Thank you, Matt. Now, look, we haven't got these details of this particular webinar up on our website as yet, on the link that we've got there. You can all blame me for that. But it will be up there, certainly by tomorrow, hopefully later on today. So if you hop back to www.alloy.com.au/webinars at some stage later today or tomorrow, then you should see full information and registration links up on our website. Sounds like that will be really interesting, Matt, as well. Okay, let's wrap up now with our question and answer session. I see there's still most of the attendees are with us, and we've had a great turnout today, guys. Thank you very much. Something like, I would say, about 90% of people who registered were able to join us today, which is really good. So let's go to question and answers now. Just to remind everybody, you can continue to ask chat questions if you want through this section, but if you want to ask an audio question over your audio connection, all you have to do is get into your name on the attendee list. Just click to show that you're raising your hand to ask a question on that raise hand icon. I'll unmute you and cue you in, and you can ask your question, and Matt will come back to you with an answer on whatever it is that you need to know. So if any of you have got an audio question you'd like to ask, now's your chance. Come on now, guys, don't be shy. Matt, were there any of the chat questions we had during the session that would be useful to answer in audio while we're waiting for a few questions?
Just opening on Carl.
I noticed we had some questions about Windows Server 2012, for example.
Yeah, Core. Doesn't support Core. Okay, Hyper-V, this is free, okay, but limited to function. Okay, we've also had some questions here. Does it support Linux? No. No and no. It's purely Windows based. That's it. We've just trying to open up this box so it's bigger. Questions. Feel free to ask a question, anyone. I'm happy to answer them. Okay, this is a great one. I get this asked all the time when we're talking about concurrent calls. How 3CX sees concurrent call is whether it's over the internet, out of a PSTN line, internal. Every single call, every single person that is making a call, right, whether it's internal or external, is considered as a simultaneous call.
Okay, we have Tony wanting to ask us a question now. So, Tony, if you'd like to go ahead and ask a question.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Tony, I can hear you well.
Noisy, Tony, but go ahead.
Okay. The issue of core is very interesting that you say no, it won't work on core. Given the way that Server 2012 works, you can install on a full GUI and have a product fully operational. Everything ready to roll. Then you can go into PowerShell, run a PowerShell command, and restart the server, and it runs in core mode. Nothing has changed about the install. And your comment previously seemed to indicate that at the minute you turn to core, it breaks 3CX or something along those lines. I really need to have that operated on.
Tony, to full respect to your question, I'm not saying that it will break. What I'm saying, it is not supported by 3CX. There's actually some facts. We can send you a link in regards to that, but them is directly from 3CX head of development. There's obviously a few things that they found that didn't quite run correctly on the core server, and this is why they would have put it in there.
Any chance you're getting a bit more detail on that for Tony at some stage?
I can actually. I'll send him some documents in regards why they do this. Yep.
And again, 3CX support issues for Windows Server 2012 might well be something that would be useful to put up on our Alloy wiki site as well.
Definitely.
Okay, Grant's also got a question. If you could just quickly ask your question, Grant.
Sure, I've just typed it in there, but the concurrent call licenses, so obviously one person's making a call out, that's one license. If it's calling extension to extension, then there's, is that two concurrent call licenses or sessions happening?
No, that would be one concurrent call. So if one extension calls another one, that's one concurrent call.
Okay, that's cool. Presumably then, if there's an incoming call, the operator answers that, holds it, does an internal call, then that's two sessions until such time as the call transfer is effected, then it's back down to one session again.
Correct. So what actually happens is if the caller goes into a ring group or a queue, okay, if the caller is still using one of the communication ports, he basically is considered as a simultaneous call.
Right.
Okay, Grant?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'm just going to unmute Tony again because his hand's still raised, so I'm wondering, Tony,
Sure.
if you wanted to come back on the 2012 issue again.
No, I'm not continuing on with it. It was just a matter of giving you positive feedback that, yes, everything needs to be updated to cover Server 2012 because it's currently out and we're not that far away from the next patched release of 2012 as well.
Great.
We'll see what we can find out from 3CX for you, Tony, on that issue. It might be that 3CX are working on 2012. We'll check into that and see what we can find out for you. A whole host of chat questions coming up, which I think the guys are having trouble keeping up with. I see Aaron's asked, with regards to concurrent call licensing, is there any way to see if a customer's hit his limit? Anything on that, Matt?
Sorry, Carl, can you repeat that please for me?
Aaron's asked, with regards to your current call licensing, is there any way to see if a customer has hit his limit? His
Certainly.
licensing limit?
Oh, good question. 3CX will let you know. It doesn't tell the customer. It'll probably come up like an engaged signal, or your call failed. But what it will, what the 3CX server will do, if they've checked the right box under the administrative privileges, it will send them an email saying you've reached your limit. So if we know that this is happening and the business is growing, we obviously need more concurrent calls. So the easy solution is to upgrade. Like if you had a Mini that you thought, oh, that's okay, and then all of a sudden you're starting to get an influx of calls and say we can't cope, then you definitely want to upgrade to an asymultaneous call license. But saying that, even if you had like your standard PSTN lines, or you had your standard ISDN lines from any other provider, if you've reached your limit, you will basically, the call will not go through and say you're engaged. Pretty much what 3CX will actually do.
Thanks, Matt. Now, Matt, Trish has asked us what database 3CX uses. She wondered whether it was MS SQL or MySQL or some other database.
Yeah, it's SQL.
Okay. And looks like we have a question from Grant. You can probably see this on your screen, Matt. Are extension-to-extension calls, do they use 2 concurrent call licenses? Presumably
One.
If a call, just
one.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think looks like we're just about done. It's 12:27, so it's almost exactly on the hour, except, of course, I thought it would be the presentation that took up the hour. I'm just wrapping up that bottle of beer for you now, Matt. It'll be in the
Thanks, Carl.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been another really great turnout for the webinar. Just take this final opportunity to thank you and to remind you that if you aren't registered yet as a 3CX partner, you can do that easily and quickly on their website. And do please mention that you've been talking to Alloy, and Alloy is your preferred distributor, so that we get a gong and get to keep working with you. We will be running our next webinar on the 19th of June in a couple of weeks' time, 2 weeks from today. Tips and tricks for 3CX, which sounds like a really great webinar because, as I've mentioned earlier on, Matt's been working with this product for a long time now, and he's got a wealth of information about the issues to do with, the technical configuration and setup of 3CX that will be really helpful to you guys. And we've got our Melbourne and Sydney 3CX partner training coming up in the first week of July, again on the Alloy website. Many thanks, folks, for your time. It's been a pleasure presenting to you again and talking with you again, and we hope to see you all again in 2 weeks' time at the next webinar. Many thanks.